What's up? What's up, everyone? Welcome to the new episode of the Myles podcast. This is mylesmunroejr, your host. And as you know on this podcast, the vision and goal for this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right? So we got a good episode today. I'm really excited about this one. We get to talk a little business. As you know, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. But for this podcast, we're going to be a bit more specific, right? I have a good friend of mine, someone that I've done some work with professionally. Then we've mixed in a lot of social circles and whatnot. But I wanted to bring him onto the pod to talk a little real estate, right? So the topic of this particular pod is we're going to talk a little bit of real estate. And for a bit more credibility, because, I dibble and dabble in investments in real estate, but I wanted to bring someone on who is actually in the industry and works professionally in the industry. So I want to welcome to the Myles podcast, Mr. Danny Lowe. Welcome, Danny. Welcome. Let's clap him up.
Appreciate it.
Welcome, Danny. Thank you for joining, man.
It's an honor, honestly.
No, honor is mine.
When you first launched the podcast, I messaged you immediately like, bro, this is so cool and so helpful. So, for you to invite me as a guest and you feel like I could add value, I'm excited.
Absolutely, man. I guess I'm appreciative that you accepted the invitation.
Of course.
Thank you so much. So let's get right to it, man. So I want to start with a little bit of your history, right? Because you didn't set out to be in the real estate industry, right? This is something that kind of evolved as you went through your studies at university, and you got into your professional work. So let's go back to you left the Bahamas. You're born and raised in the Bahamas.
Bahamas. Yeah, I was born and raised there. Mm-hmm. So when I was completing high school, I kind of had the option of either to go to Canada, to go to the U.S., or, one of my closest friends, he was like, I'm going to China. I'm like, you going to China? He's like, yeah, I'm going to study trade in China. And it was like a bell just went off in my head. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to do the same. So him and we set off 2010, went to Beijing, and I took up a Bachelor's of Economics in International Trade. And we both said, okay, we want to set up trading companies. So when I originally went over there, the intention was I was going to set up a import-export business. We're going to bring in containers from China to the Bahamas. Boom, that's like my 20-year plan.
So you wanted to establish a business here where you import these products and then sell them to the Bahamian public.
Right. Okay. So like procurement, supply, like logistics, supply chain, packing containers, air freight. So went there, did that, set up a company in Hong Kong, a buddy of mine from Belgium, we were in partnership, and, we started to say, okay, let's get into it. And we had some customers over here and they're like, yeah, we're going to be a big customer of yours. We're going to order like a container worth of goods. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a lot. And then, we go to supply in China and they're like, okay, getting a container, great. This is a sample,
sample order.
I'm like, no, this is like good for a couple of months. And they're like, no, like we deal with like 20, 30, larger 40 volumes. Containers. Yeah, I mean, those guys are shipping to big break bulk markets like Miami, Panama, Nigeria, these places. So anyway, that started to like fizzle out a bit. And in my travels, I ran into my former broker and, I was trying to actually promote the idea we were exporting solar. So I was trying to connect with a couple of developers to supply them with solar panels for the communities. And then, he put in my head like, I think you'd be good at real estate actually. I was like, real estate? I never even thought about it, to be honest. I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And the idea that started to like go into my mind at the time was, I'm like, you have the Chinese market, which was like buying all over Europe, Canada, United States, but there's no like bridge between the Chinese market and the Bahamas. This is kind of around the same time like Bahamas, like that saga was happening. And I said, I'm going to be the first to promote Bahamian real estate in China. So we set off, we were one of the first companies at the time to promote like Bahamian real estate in China, which was like a big deal at the time. Bahamas had like an office in Hong Kong. I flew all the way to Hong Kong to like meet with those guys. So I wasn't licensed, so I wasn't actually selling, but it was just kind of like promoting.
Getting your feet wet.
Getting my feet wet, promoting, seeing what sticks.
And doing all of this through the broker your broker that you were working along with.
Right.
And at the same time, you still had your import-export company at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I still had that. So, we were doing like smaller products at the time. And then shortly after that, I took over my dad's business when he passed. So we had a construction company and I was doing that. So I kind of had my hands in like
a few things
while still being in school, like just juggling.
So you mentioned you were in school. At which year in your studies did all of this start to evolve?
It was really coming towards. So one of my first jobs actually was, I was a promoter in one of the largest hip hop clubs in Beijing.
Oh, okay.
So that was like one of my first jobs, and one of my roles and responsibilities was I had to like bring as many people, especially students, to come to the club as I possibly can. So like that wasn't my first intro into sales, but that was kind of like I was really in there. Like, look, you're commission based. You need to bring a certain amount of people, to the club on Wednesday, on Thursday, and I like.
So you got a percentage at the door, or you like
You got like a bonus.
Okay.
I mean, college kid, like a couple $100 in your mind, like
that went a long way.
That went.
No, I feel that.
Miles, I went miles.
So you were fairly successful doing that as far as like sales is concerned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of like my intro. So really, end of freshman year is when I really started to say, let me get this import-export business going. Then we started looking at like what all opportunities are here to connect like the Bahamas and China.
And I think that's such a good principle, right? That we all should follow. I always I mention that every problem is a business, right? And I think what Danny is saying, that he recognized a lack in our community, in our industries in the Bahamas, right? And he wanted to kind of plug that hole that was empty. And trying to deal with like import exports, and essentially buying low cost items, because everyone knows like majority of everything we buy is made in China, right?
Right.
And a lot of the quality of product in China are fairly good. So being able to import those into the Bahamas seems like a fairly good idea, right? But I think the obstacles that we run into, especially being Bahamian and wanting to like do a lot of these businesses in the Bahamas, is not understanding that the volume that we need to have in order to make the business successful and to scale in a sense, we just don't have in the Bahamas, right? We're a population of about 400,000 people, 200,000 to 250,000 of whom live in Nassau, right? Yeah. The capital city. So the bulk of what we can do or what we're limited on is based on like, the population here on the mainland or in the capital city. So, I mean, I just feel like it's important to point out, like when you're thinking about business and wanting to do certain things, you have to understand the market that you're in. And I think you guys eventually came to the realization that, man, I don't know if this import-export business is going to work. At least not the model that you guys wanted to set up.
Right.
Just based off of volume alone.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what I found from like my first business endeavor, even up until now, is you only have so much time in a day, right? Where are you allocating your time? Where are you getting the most value per hour with your time and what you're doing? And that's kind of how I segue fully into real estate, because I kind of calculated, okay, if I did X amount of work with a real estate transaction, I'm getting a certain return compared to import export, compared to construction. So I said, you know what? Why don't if I have, let's say 40 hours in a week, if I'm splitting it up and doing like 10 hours here, 10 hours there, 10 hours there, I said, I should just focus all of my time into real estate, and because that's where I'm getting the most value per hour with my time. So it's a lot of trial and error. The import-export business was trial and error. The construction business was trial and error, because even with the construction business, we were profitable, but I wasn't happy doing it.
Yeah. And, you and I had this conversation, or, we've had a number of conversations on this topic. And, that's always something that stood out to me, right? Because here you are, you have a family business that your dad started. Your dad passed. And I guess naturally, you may feel like this obligation to be like, I feel like I should take this business over and continue the business. And, the difficulty in that is, if it isn't something you love, right, that desire to continue is only going to last so long, right? Because the passion isn't there. Like, you, as much as you may want to carry the name on, or fulfill whatever it is the vision was that your dad had, if it isn't in you, you can't force it, right? And I deal with that a lot too, right? Because a lot of people, my dad was a pastor. People kind of expected or wanted me to follow in his footsteps, and I tell people, like, I feel like I am following in his footsteps, right? I'm still fulfilling and living out my purpose here on this earth, just differently than he did, right? And I feel like, regardless of the industry or the profession that we choose, like that's our platform to, like, share our stories and to minister to people, in a sense, right? We're living our life and trying to encourage people to do the same about them, right? Do what you love, ensure that you're living out your abilities on this earth.
Right.
And I'm sure that decision for you, because, it's just funny enough that I loved, kind of doing what my dad did. So what I'm doing is kind of in line with, what he did.
Right.
But how difficult was the decision for you to realize, man, this construction business is what my dad started. But it's not something that I love, so I don't see it being something that I could continue doing. How difficult was it for you to come to the decision to shut that down?
It was difficult, and it took a number of years. All the projects I went on, we bid in, we're getting the work, the stress, the time. And I think, something my dad told me that resonated, or it one day just kind of went off. He's like, look, if you're going to be a garbage man, be the best garbage man you could be, right? And what he was meaning by that was, as long as you're fully dedicated and showing excellence in whatever you do, that's what's important. So it came to a point for me, and like what you said, I'm like, I would honor him by fully investing in whatever it is I'm doing and being excellent at it, and also enjoying it. I'm sure as parents, you wouldn't want for your kid to
not enjoy
what they're doing for a career. Like, parents, like, you want your kids to succeed, and the part of succeeding isn't just making money. It's actually enjoying and waking up with that passion and purpose. Like, I feel like I'm doing something that's changing the world. I feel like this is my calling. I feel like, this what wakes me up, rather than, again, I'm like, oh man,
No, that's such a great story, a part of your story, right? Because I'm sure you had, like, family members, or like your dad's friends and the employees that were in the construction company. I only could imagine, like, the jeers that they were throwing at you and being like, man, you come here and you just shutting down what your dad started. Like, what are you doing? And just the negativity behind that. But to be able to have that, that stick-to-itness, and to be like, nah, I'm going to take, everything that I learned through this process and through the business and with my dad, and just apply it to what I love.
Exactly.
And we're going to get there eventually, but things turned out pretty nicely for you.
I think so.
Can't complain, right?
Can't complain,
All right, so you shut the construction business down.
Right.
You shut the import-export business down.
Yep.
And you decided to, instead of dividing your time, in your weekly hours dedicated to work in 3 different areas, you decided to focus on real estate.
Yep.
And let's start off with why real estate.
So I found, well, in the Bahamas, most of the wealth is stored in real estate, right?
I think that's a global fact.
That's a global fact,
for sure.
But definitely in the Bahamas.
Definitely, yeah.
We have BISX. You have government bonds. You have, I'd say, a limited amount of local options where you can invest your money safely and get a return on it. And I just realized that with real estate, like especially from a brokerage aspect, brokers get paid once properties exchange hands. You have a buyer, you have a seller, so market's going up, you have an exchange. Market going down, you have an exchange. So I don't feel like that is something that will go away. And the Bahamian real estate market is one of the most desired markets in the world, right? So from a local aspect, from a foreign aspect, people genuinely love the Bahamas. So even, unfortunately, we are subject to being hit by storms, but that doesn't deter people from, maybe it slows them down for a little bit, but they always come back. We always rebuild. So I just said, I think this is something I enjoy doing it. Every real estate transaction is different. Every real estate transaction has a life of its own. And you're meeting a series of interesting people from all walks of life. And sometimes that even segues into different
new opportunities.
Absolutely. That you wouldn't even imagine.
No, for sure.
Right?
So you opted in the real estate industry with a brokerage company, a broker and his company. And I think you started as an agent, obviously.
As an apprentice.
Yep. Okay. And you eventually, went through the testing phase and became an agent.
Yep.
And how long were you like in that agent phase? Let's talk about like the successes and even some of the failures that you experienced during that time.
Right. So to become a broker in the Bahamas, you have to be licensed for at least 5 years. You have to do a certain amount of sales transactions. You have to do a certain amount of rentals. You have to complete I think it's 5 certifications in order to become a broker. So during that time, as an agent, I was doing the classes. I traveled to Tampa to do certain classes just because I wanted to become a broker. But I think that as an agent, what a lot of people don't understand is that you're commission based. There's no salary.
So when you started as an apprentice and then you eventually became an agent, your mindset was always to eventually become a broker?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because ultimately I wanted, as a broker, I wanted that level of control because as a broker, you can open your own independent shop. Now, that doesn't mean that all brokers open their own shops. Sometimes you have multiple brokers working under a managing broker.
Right.
But to me, that was, a display of professionalism, saying that, okay, this person has achieved a certain amount of or complete a certain amount of transactions, has enough experience that he is now a broker instead of instead of an agent. And also the flexibility that at one point, if I wanted to open up my own shop, I could.
So how long did you work as an agent?
I was an agent roughly about 8. Well, before I became a broker, about 6 years.
6 years.
Roughly 6 years.
So you worked in another company for 6 years.
Yep.
Successful in a sense, yeah.
Yeah. I was.
Let's talk. Go ahead. You can show off. You can show off a bit.
I was like top 3.
There you go.
Globally for the international franchise. I did pretty well.
Did pretty good.
I did pretty good.
Yeah.
There were some years that weren't as good.
Let's talk about those though, because and especially in real estate, and I think the real estate agent industry or real estate industry on the whole, but specifically agents I feel like it's experienced a boom in the last year or two, especially in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
I've seen like a lot of individuals who weren't in the industry before, have gotten into the industry now. And I think it's because they see all of the success and the opportunities that are in the industry. But I want to talk about like those, because being an agent is so commission based. Like if you don't sell, you don't make money, right?
Simple
so
as that.
Let's talk about like, you have a successful period or a successful year, But talk about those times when you weren't so successful, or you just, there was a lull in the business or in the industry. How did you manage yourself through that?
So you'll find that as a good agent, a good broker, you have to wake up every single day and treat it like a business. Every single day. You time block, you allocate a certain amount of time that I'm going to make calls. I'm going to run certain marketing campaigns. I'm going to prospect to get certain leads, listings. So even during times that the market was a bit slower, that doesn't mean you slow your efforts up.
Right.
You keep pushing, and actually you push harder.
Right.
Then, some folks say, oh man, it's a bit slow, whatever. That's when you actually double down on your marketing efforts.
I have to say this right now. So and this is something I try to hit at, through all of the conversations that I've been having and I'm able to have on this pod. We all go through seasons in our life. Life is very seasonal, right? And we have our seasons of success, but there are those times where we experience seasons of being stagnant or seasons of failure, right? A lot of times the response may be to just quit and to be like, man, I want to give up. But those are the periods where you need to push harder, right? You lock down and you double down on all of your investments, your educational investments, your professional investments. You double down on things that could, feed your professionalism, feed your personal development, and feed your spirit, man. So that, once that season passes, you'll be in a much better position to be successful in that next season.
There was a moment, I'll tell you, there was moments early on in my career where I questioned, am I doing the right thing?
Absolutely.
Am I in the right business? Did I make a mistake? And you kind of mull over because it's commission based and it's a bit slow. I was just starting off. I'm like, wow, this is tough. And that subsequent year was my best year by 3 times, 4 times during that period.
Right.
So it just was always a reminder to me, you got to hang tight.
Absolutely.
You got to hang tight because opportunities are, especially if you can't. One thing I always tell my team too is I don't sit down and wait for my phone to ring. Never. I'm not sitting by the phone hopefully it rings. I'm going out there every day, pounding the pavement, trying to make things happen.
No, for sure.
And things, if you plant the seeds, you're going to get trees and you're going to get fruit.
Check. Hey.
Yeah.
Funny you said that. That's just, that's seed, tree, fruit, that cycle, that season, that's a staple on this part. And, Danny and I haven't had this conversation prior to this particular sit down, but the fact that he's saying it just, hopefully it resonates and solidifies the importance of planting seeds, the importance of putting yourself in the right environment and giving yourself the necessary nutrients, additives that you need to feed yourself, to feed your life, to feed your dreams, in order to see the success happen. That's important, man. It's just ironic that you say that. And looking at Drew over here, he and I know, because that seed, tree, fruit thing, that's real, bro. That's real.
And it's tough sometimes. You go in there and you're watering the seed and you don't see nothing. You don't see anything happening. Like, man.
But little do you know that seed is in the soil, right? And everything is happening underground, right? Like you say, you planting those seeds, you making those calls, and you feel like, man, that call wasn't productive just now. But a couple of weeks, couple of months later, you get a call from that person, and things happen. That's how it works.
And the thing is, so I'm about to close. We still a couple of weeks out, but it would be my 200th transaction.
Wow.
So I've done 200 deals locally. And the funny
let's
thing
clap about that, let's clap that up, dog. Congratulations, bro. Congratulations.
The funny thing is, that guy, the person who's doing the 200th transaction with me, he was my first transaction.
Oh, wow.
And it was a rental on Cable Beach. And he called 5 other agents, and they were just blowing him off. Man, I don't got no time to deal with that. And I was like, hell yeah. It's I got you. Let's go. And he came back around full circle. We had touch base every now and then, but he's like, Danny, he's like, I'm now ready to buy. Like, will you help me like with my purchase?
First
So
purchase,
that for me is like a special feeling.
No, for sure.
Of just like, again, planting that seed. Sometimes the seeds take a couple of years to grow too.
Couple of years, man.
You know?
Yo, it's just so ironic. Like, there's just the little nuggets you saying, like we've been saying on this pod for all these episodes. But to have someone that, you know, makes it a bit more relatable, and, you know, I'm not the one saying it, right? It's a real life example, and, you know, you're showing the harvest of the seeds that you've planted over the years. All right, so you were working with this brokerage company with this broker for 6 years, and then you got that bug. You got that bug with, you know, okay, it's time for me to move on and, you know, establish something bigger for myself. I have a much larger vision that I see for myself, things that I want to accomplish. So let's talk about the process of now transitioning from being an agent to being a broker.
So, like you said, I kind of got the bug. Like, okay, it's almost like a T-junction. Like, okay, which way am I gonna go left? Am I gonna go right? Am I gonna kind of hang tight where I am? And I said, I'm ready to like bet on myself and double down on my endeavors. And, you know, I was scrolling IG and I saw, like, you know, coincidentally, the agency Turks and Caicos, and I saw like their style of marketing, and like it was almost like love at first sight. And I was like, this is it. I was like, this is the way you market real estate, right? So, you know, shot them a message. I said, hey, can you connect me with like the folks up top in like corporate? You know, a couple of conversations here, a couple of Zooms there. When you look, I'm in New York with Mauricio, like signing the contract over dinner.
Wow.
You know, and it was like a crazy moment, and people were like, one of us, you know, like.
No, for sure.
So
just to break down what Danny is saying. So he saw this real estate company, right?
Yeah.
It's called The Agency. As you can see with the branding he has. Reached out to them, decided that, yo, I love this look, love the vision you guys have, love what you guys are doing. Like, how can I, become a part of this?
Yeah. And
you became a partner.
Yeah. So I bought the rights for the country.
For the Bahamas.
Right. I think I may not be the youngest managing partner in the network. I think there's one person younger than me that came.
Who's this guy?
Right after, right? I'm not sure, but it's 100 offices. You know, we're in Cayman, Turks, multiple offices in Canada, multiple offices all over the U.S.
And since you joined, you guys have opened offices since, right? Because all of those offices weren't open. So it's an expanding organization.
It's growing like rapidly.
Right. Nice.
So, you know, they want to be in all of the bespoke markets globally, from Mallorca. LA is our home base. So, you know, Mauricio, the founder, or one of the founders, you know, he saw like the Playboy Mansion. So they're known for selling some of the most prolific real estate globally.
How long have they been around?
They have been around, I think it's 12 years.
12 years, wow. Okay.
I have to double check, 11 or 12 years. But it's a newer company. It's a younger company.
But doing a lot.
Doing a lot. Just opened up a big flagship shop in New York. It's like a global, and we're all like integrated. So, you know, I could message Mauricio like now. I could message the team in Mallorca. I could message the team in LA. It's like, you know, it sounds like a little cheesy, but it's like one big family.
Absolutely.
You know, and it actually works that way. So when I did it, I said, look, you'd be surprised, especially in the high-end luxury market, how close-knit, like you're only a couple degrees of separation away from someone else.
Sure.
So that person who has that ski house in Aspen, they're gonna know the guys in like Albany. They all mix and mingle in similar circles. And again, Bahamas being such a bespoke destination, there are gonna be ties and referrals are gonna come through the network to the office.
So how difficult was it for you to move from being under someone, right, and not really having a bulk of the responsibility to now being a managing partner in this organization, the agency, and having essentially all of the responsibility, right? Everything falls on you with this particular location.
Very difficult. Very difficult. You know what it is that I think people underestimate is the administrative work aspect of it. As simple as I was like, I need an office. Then you get the office and like one day, like you're in the office and you're like, wait, I don't have a fridge. Right? Like
certain things you didn't have to worry about.
You didn't really think about before, but you need all of these things to happen for you to have a successful brokerage. Training staff, bringing on additional agents as team members, working with them. Everything kind of falls under your purview as the broker. So my shoulders had to become a lot broader to take on the weight of handling like everything that was in front of me. But you actually do get, as you build your systems, then your systems help you.
Sure.
So then you're building on, it's like building blocks, like you're building on what you've built, and then you keep building on top of it, you keep building on top of it, you keep expanding, you keep expanding. So now we have a system in place, and we're able to take listings, launch listings, market. We have campaigns, marketing campaigns in place. Like it's not running itself, but it's definitely running.
The system is there.
The system is there now.
Sure.
The coffee machine is there. Sure. Like these little things
that we don't think about.
We don't think about,
necessary.
But they're necessary in running a business. Yeah. So, we have been open about 1 year.
So let's talk about that. Been open a year now, so you're fairly new. Yeah. But let's talk about the success that you've had. Now, I like to talk numbers. You could talk broad numbers, nothing specific. But I want people to understand, the success that you've had, but not necessarily because of you've been chasing it. It's just because of the seeds that you've been planting. So let's talk about the success of the agency Bahamas.
So we have close to $70 million in listings.
Wow.
Our team started with just me. Now we have 1 full-time employee, and we have 5 agents. So basically all of my target markers that I was aiming for, we've accomplished for year 1.
Wow. Okay.
One thing I do feel as a part of like our success is not much places even when I walked in, he's like the agency, like, somehow, some way you're seeing it. Yeah. And a real estate company is a marketing company with knowledge on real estate. Right. So my job, if you hire me, is I'm supposed to I'm supposed to advise you, but I'm supposed to expose your property to as many people as I can, especially qualified people. So the more eyes that you're seeing on the brand, they're like, I see the agency, I see it. I say, okay, that means we're doing our job in marketing right. and getting ourselves out there. And we're obviously realistic. You have some of these other brands that have been around for 100 years, 70 years, we're year 1. But I feel like we've done significant work in our first year,
So I want to talk about let's get a little devious, right? Yeah. So you talk about these other organizations, the other real estate companies. I'm sure it's a competition. I'm sure you guys work together, because there are co-brokerage that's happened and right. everything. But how is the competition? I guess in for your knowledge in the Bahamas, right? With all of these different agencies, right. all of these different companies. It's only so much real estate that are available. Like, is there competition? Is the competition levels? Is it high? Is it competitive? Is it treacherous? How is it?
I think one of my colleagues is like real estate is like a contact sport, right? It is highly competitive. You are typically, if you're in the luxury space, if someone is calling you or you get into the table, they are going to talk to probably 2 or 3 other agents as well. That's just natural. So you have to convince them to see, why are you like the best fit for the job? What are you going to do for me and my property that's going to be different than the other folks? So it's really about being creative in our marketing campaigns and our listing presentations, why we are getting certain listings over other firms, as well as the level of enthusiasm that I think the brand has and brings, that we're proud of, that we're like, you and your property are the most important thing to us. You are VIP client number one. Like, we're not just going to get your property listed and then push you to the side and kind of wait and let it happen. No, like, you have me on speed dial. You're getting weekly updates. We're all in it for you.
No, for sure. Sure. So, been open a year now, had a successful year.
Right.
So tell us how the next, 5 to 10 years look for Agency Bahamas.
So, we want to hit certain sales targets. We want to be getting to $75 million a year in sales, $100 million a year in sales, $150 million a year in sales, $250 million a year in sales. And
some good numbers.
Yeah, it's achievable. Yeah. It's a lot of hard work, but it's achievable. And that's kind of where we want to aim. We have a private island listed for sale. We want to participate in the private island market. We want to participate in the development market. And I think for me, that's been a somewhat of a passion, because there's so many young professionals here in the country that reach out to me like every single day. And, they want a nice townhouse or condo in a desirable area that they can afford.
They ain't got to sell their arm and leg for.
Yeah, and it's like it's a gap in the market, because obviously when you're in development or construction, you're doing it to make profit. Let's just be honest about the situation. And it's hard to make a profit and be able to sell a product that's really nice and it's still affordable. Like, these 3 things happening at once is tough. So, we're talking a couple of players now that are looking to hopefully to do some more projects like that. And we'd like to be their like sales team, so a couple of these developments. So that's something I'm hoping over the next year or 2 that we can get off the ground.
Sure.
And continue our efforts of, expanding our brand. I would look at opening an office in another island or 2, especially like a Luther. Luther has like a special place in my heart. So just as we grow, that's something I'm like looking at.
That's dope, man. And just to point out, like, I've worked with Danny on a number of deals, and I've seen the growth. Like, I've been there through the transition. I remember you and I had a conversation one day, and he was like, you were at your old real estate company, and he was like, yeah, man, in a couple of months I'm gonna be transitioning into my own thing. And like you said, there was like some anxiousness, and you had a little bit of anxiety, but I felt the enthusiasm and the excitement that you also had at the time, and to see what you've done, over the last year with the agency. I just want to commend you, man, and
I appreciate that, man.
Just wish you all the best in all of your endeavors. I think you have a unique. I've worked with a number of brokers, right? A number of deals that I've done. And I think for you, like us working together, I like your approach, right? Because you have brokers who could become pests at times, right? And they just like constantly call and like almost antagonize you to be like, yo, let's do this, let's do that. There's all of these different opportunities. And it's like you kind of take a subtle approach, and I appreciate the subtle approach. Now I know there may be people out there who appreciate more of the aggressive approach. But I like your subtleness and the advice that you give, right? Because I may have some opportunities come up that Donnie isn't affiliated with in no way, but I'm able to call him and be like, yo, I want to run this idea by you, and he gives me his honest honest advice. And we sit down and we actually like we bust down the numbers and be like, yo, Donnie, like, I don't think this makes sense. Like, you have to make this make sense. And he takes his time to be like, okay, you have to look at it like this and like that. Right. So, I think that's a unique gift that you have, man. And don't lose that, because I think that helps, especially like, young investors out, right, who may not be thinking of the entire picture when it comes to real estate investment. But giving that insight to them, I think it helps a lot.
Well, a good agent or broker is an advisor. It's not like a salesperson. And I think a lot of people, like, you kind of mix up. It's not about the deal. Like, anything that I'm helping you with as your agent or broker, I want to talk to you 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the line and be like, you still feel good about your decision. So, I put myself, every time we're doing a deal, I kind of put myself in their shoes. Got you. And say, okay, this is how I feel about it if it was me.
And that is true, because, you do kind of tackle it from, if I was involved, like, this is what I would have done.
Right. Yeah. And lay out the pros and the cons. Sure. Like, in some of the matters we dealt with, I said, these are the pros, but these are the cons.
No, for sure.
Like, let's not hide, let's not shy away from it. But you kind of weigh it up and you write down your list and you say, okay, how does it compare or stack up against one another? And if it's more pros, then you're like, well, like, write it up, Danny.
For sure. No, for sure. Let's get it done. No, man. So I'd be remiss if we didn't have a conversation about some actionable items, right? So I want to talk about two things. The first thing I want to discuss is someone that's interested in getting into the business of real estate, interested in becoming an agent, interested in becoming maybe a broker one day, owning their own brokerage company. A real estate company. What advice do you have to those individuals? I know we kind of mentioned some of them, early on in our discussion, but what would you advise them? Like, where should they start? What could they do to, first of all, get into the business and then become successful in it?
Well, it's all about mentorship. I had good mentorship. You want to get in with a brokerage where you feel like that broker is going to take his time and teach you and show you the ropes. You want to learn good habits. So your brokerage you're with typically is kind of how you're going to form your style. And then you do the apprenticeship. Now, the tricky part is, obviously, certain brokers only have so much bandwidth to take on so many apprentices at a time. So sometimes you do kind of have to shop around and approach a couple of folks and,
got to be patient.
Got to be patient as well, because sometimes the spot will be open. Sometimes you might have to wait a little bit. But a lot of times what I tell folks, like, a lot of real estate is marketing, but a lot of it also is your network. Thinking about who you are in contact with. So some folks would be like bankers and then they transition to real estate. They've been lawyers and they transition into real estate. So you also have to think, not to limit yourself, but you also have to think before getting into the business, like, where is my pool of buyers coming from? Where is my pool of sellers coming from? Right? Like, you have a team member that lives in a building on Paradise Island, right? We now have the most listings out of any other firm in that building. A big part of it is he lives in the building.
Right. So based off relationships.
So it's an organic, it's organically coming because he lives there. So it's just something I like people to think about before saying, I want to jump in.
And what about, like, what could they do from an educational standpoint to learn the business?
So there is a entry licensing exam that happens twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. You would have to be sponsored by a broker to take it. I don't remember the cost right now, and I know it went up. But, from that point of view, you can see if you can take the exam. Other than that, there's a lot of great educators. Tom Ferry, Ryan Serhant, our founder, Mauricio Umansky. They have books. They have podcasts. They have YouTube channels. Like, there's a lot of good nuggets and tips you as a successful agent or agent to be could learn just from studying what the greats have done before you.
Right.
Myself, I read all their books. I listen to the podcast. I want to see what tips and tricks and what they've done that's worked for them. So you being non-licensed, that information and is all free, and you have access to that like anytime you want.
Sure. So never stop learning.
Never stop learning.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Never stop learning.
For sure. Man, so that's I feel like that's great advice. And not only for, persons wanting to jump in the industry in the Bahamas,
Right.
but I think anywhere you are, right? Wherever you live, whatever country you work in or you want to work in. I just think, this advice can apply to any of you out there. So appreciate that, Danny. So the second thing that I wanted to tackle is someone that is interested in investing in real estate. So real estate investment, right? Not necessarily working in the industry, but wanting, they may have some cash, that's readily available to them, and they want to invest that cash. What's your advice on the different investment opportunities that are available in real estate?
So step number one is, unless you're buying it all cash, you need to go to the bank and talk to the bank to see what you can borrow. A lot of folks kind of like skip that step. And they want to go to the agent first or whatever. Like, go to the bank. You might be pleasantly surprised. Talk to them and see what your buying power is. That's step one. Step two, that's something I learned. Read the news. Read the news. See what's happening. Follow the trends. If you look now, let's talk about the south of the island. You have Albany looking to expand. You have Adelaide Beach Club that's on the table to be launched. You have Windsor Lakes. All of these things are in the southern part of New Providence. So in my mind, if I have these, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of development, okay, that's a little indicator for me, like around this area is being developed, I may be able to, what's going to happen with the staff that need to live around that area. From the contractors to the nannies to the young professionals that work at these places, like you kind of think what makes sense, right?
What the needs are.
What are the needs?
Right.
You also look at market trends. So, okay, Venetian West, they launched another phase of 2-bedroom condos. Those all sold out and they were like $450,000 a pop. When Venetian started, I think the 2 beds are like $289 or something like that. So you're seeing a climb in the demand for, Western 2-bedroom condos, and that demand is not diminishing.
Sure.
It's not going anywhere. Everybody wants to be West, or a lot of people want to be West.
Yeah.
Another thing is gated communities. Like, you follow the demand.
Yeah.
You follow the demand.
And I think that, I guess it's the same in any area of investing you want to do, right?
Yeah.
You see what's happening in the industry. You follow the trends in the industry, understand what the big players are doing. So these essentially would be those large developers focusing heavily on the southern part of the islands now with all of these new developments, and figuring out, okay, how, like, what plays can I make to afford me to be able to benefit from these new developments that are coming about.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
That's the way I like to look at it. And then do your homework and study the numbers so you could follow historical data and see what's happened in this area over the course of 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Prices going up, prices staying the same. If you're doing a short-term rental, or you're looking to do a lot of people reach out and say, oh, I want to do short-term rentals. You should study on Airbnb and these other platforms. Okay, if I had a 2-bed in a certain development, what are they renting for a night? You can kind of look at the calendar and see how many nights are really booked out, right? What's your average utilities? Kind of think about what is your net number after you pay your homeowner association fees, real property tax, manager, or if you have someone managing your property, like run all of the numbers, and also run the numbers as if you're gonna have slow periods.
For sure. So run them at 50%, 60%, whatever.
Do all the different.
I say this recommendation a lot as well. Like, do the math. Like, doing the math is so important when it comes to like investments or the possibilities of investments, right? You, like Donnie said, you go through. Okay, here's what the investment is. here's what I can make from the investment, but here's all of the expenses that come along with this investment, and figure out like what is the net profit at the end of the day, and if it's sufficient, if it's sustainable, how long can I keep this going? Because, you mentioned short-term rentals, and, when you compare short-term rentals and long-term rentals, long-term, you there's a possibility that you could, earn a larger profit doing short-term rentals. But because there's a lull in the market, like depending on the season, right? Some seasons are much slower than others. It could be beneficial to lock into a long-term rental where you at the end of these 12 months, like what you're going to be earning.
So even with one of my properties, like I converted from short-term to long-term, the return may have been slightly less, but the stability of having a consistent tenant month over month, year over year, proved to be more attractive because it didn't require as much maintenance. So
less headache.
You're dealing with one person.
For sure.
I had folks come and they're like, hey man, like, why isn't the pool heated? I never said it was heated. All of these demands, and when you're doing short term, you have to be prepared for that.
No, for sure.
That it may not always work out or be a smooth check in and check out, wear and tear on your property.
And even with the short-term rentals, you got all of these, you got this traffic of people coming in and out, and it has a wear and tear on the unit itself, right? And all of these things that you have to be conscious of as an owner, right? So essentially think of all these things if you're thinking about getting into the industry.
Just weigh it out.
For sure. Well, this is a portion of the pod. This is something new that I'm adding to the pod, right? And this is the question I'm going to be asking a lot of our guests, all of our guests when they come on. And that question is, how do you define success?
Wow, it's a powerful question.
It is, because society has this depiction or this vision of what success should be or what it should look like. But I'm of the belief like success is all relative, and success is what you make it.
Right.
So I want to know how do you define success?
That's such a deep question, and I think my definition of success is it comes down to achieving your goals, but while achieving your goals, maintaining peace of mind, peace in your soul, right? Because it's like a balance between you're pushing yourself, but you also want to, when you come home at the end of the day saying, okay, I feel good about what's happening. Success to me is freedom of time, right? Having the ability to, why are you doing the things that you're doing? What is your like end goal with working so hard, right? You want to have the flexibility and freedom to do the things that you would like to do. How are you also impacting the country or impacting those like for future generations? What are you leaving behind? What is your legacy? I know you did a pod on legacy and leaving behind a legacy. So, success for me definitely is just not making money.
Sure.
I've a long time
came to that
realization like making money is not success.
Right.
That's a byproduct of it.
Sure.
If you're really passionate about something you're doing, but that's not the beginning and end to life, making more money.
No, absolutely.
No,
I love that, man. Thank you for that that personal definition for you.
Right.
And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to that, and hopefully the point of it is for persons to take tidbits of like what everyone says and kind of define success for themselves. Because I like I said, I do think it's all relative.
What's it for you?
Success is doing something that you love, personally, not what someone else's love, but doing something that I love to do the way that I love to do it. And in doing that, I help others. I help others with something. So for me personally, it's helping others really discover and develop themselves,
right,
on a professional level, personal level, and a spiritual level. So that's what success is to me. It has nothing to do with, the amount of money that we have, the amount of cars that we drive, the type of cars that we drive, the house that we live in. Like, there's no materialistic thing that defines success for me, right? It's doing what I love, being happy doing it, having the freedom to explore, different ways to divulge my desires, my wants, my purpose in life, learning new things. All of these things I use to define success.
And for me now, when my team members hit certain milestones, that feels like success to me. And seeing, their faces light up like, I got this deal done, or I got this listing, or I moved into a new apartment.
Yeah, because I feel true success isn't personal, right? No. True success, and if we're all being honest, like, feeling successful is being able to see someone else reach a level of success or attain a goal that they have set. Right, and that's as an individual whose mentality or mindset is to help others, and with you, with your agency, with the team that you have, like, I think that's what success should be, right? Not because honestly, like, we want to achieve success for ourselves, right? We want to become successful, but once we've already done that and have attained a level of success for ourselves, it should shift into, okay, I've become successful, now I want to transfer this success to someone else. Yeah. And that's my mindset, to ensure that I'm doing everything and saying everything that I need to say and need to do to ensure that others are able to attain success as well.
100%.
Yeah. Man, Danny, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on the pod. Let's leave some folks with your contacts. Like I say, Danny is a great broker. He's located in the Bahamas. All of you locals who are interested in getting into the real estate business, interested in buying your first home or finding a rental, and even you international individuals who are listening and watching, Danny's your man. So let's give the folks some contacts.
Yeah, you could reach out on Instagram, Danny Bahamas, my cell 424-3499. But I'm always happy to talk. That's the thing. Like, it's no pressure. Like, you could call me, we could talk about it, we could run some ideas. I'll tell you what I think about it, and I'll give you the resources I have to see if I can connect. We have connections with bankers, we have connections with lawyers, so we could get you started if it's something that you're interested in. But thanks again for the opportunity, man. I really appreciate it.
We got to do this again. We got to do this again for sure. So maybe couple months down the road when when the agency has grown a little even bigger, or just if you want to come shoot the breeze and just talk real estate some more, you're always welcome to join me. That, man. All right, so we've reached the segment of the pod where I like to discuss a milestone. As you know, this is something that I want to leave with you with each pod, so hoping you could apply it to your life. This week's milestone is something very simple. It's a quote that I heard from Warren Buffett, a very successful and popular investor. And, Ms. Buffett says, never invest in anything that you don't understand. That's a simple milestone, but it's so important, right? Because a lot of times we want to invest in things that are trendy, or we want to invest in things that are popular, or that we see, just things that are the go-to thing right now. And if we don't understand it, we could, lose a lot with that investment. So never invest in anything that you don't understand. Do the work, and educate yourself, find out more about that particular investment. Like Danny mentioned on the pod today, find out what's trendy, read the news, read the papers, watch the news, do what is necessary to make sure that you're well informed of the investment that you want to make.
100%.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the pod, this particular episode. This was exciting. Danny, thank you again for joining us. Looking forward to doing this again. But as always, the vision and goal of this pod is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. Until next time, you guys be blessed.